is the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show with Joel Luna and Sam Cinta, bringing you this week's latest on the gridiron from around the Bend.
Already now to the Week 9 edition of the Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show. Sam Cinta here alongside Joel Luna, recapping all of the action. We had pretty jam-packed week with a lot of our teams playing each other. A couple really big, important district games. Foster football clinching a playoff spot, and Fulshear, punching their ticket officially now to the playoffs as well with the win over George Ranch. A lot to get into here, but for me, I kind of feel a little out of the loop here, as I didn't have any of our 3 football games to go as I was in San Antonio covering Foster water polo at the state tournament. So Joel, I guess, for you, what stood out on the action for you this week as you were out at our games?
First of all, that district with Foster and Fulshear and George Ranch in the A-Leaf schools, Strake, that's a crazy district. Because we go into it to the final week of the season, and George Ranch is still available if they win this week. They got to win this week for that to happen. Of course, Fulshear's playing A-Leaf Ilsic. Ilsic has to lose twice. So this week and next week. And next week they got A-Leaf Taylor. So
Horns can get a little bit of help from the Chargers for sure.
They got to win. So they got to keep going. I think that stood out for me. Covered a big game with Fulshear and George Ranch. A lot of points, a lot of stats, a lot of good play from a lot of players from both teams. Even though you didn't see that in the first half from George Ranch, but in the second half, those kids came back, man. And Drinker just went wild again. So that was cool to see. Of course, the Saturday game. I think I mentioned this on one of my highlights. The breakfast at the press box at Trailer Stadium on Saturday morning was very delicious.
Oh, what'd they give you this time around?
Oh, biscuits. They got bacon. They got hash browns. They got eggs. And whatever else they had, which was all ingredients of sorts that I don't like. But you put all that together, man, you make yourself quite a sandwich.
Yeah, that's a serious way to start the day.
I ate 2 of those to start the game. You're supposed to grab one biscuit because there's only a few. I grabbed 2, man. I didn't look back. I just went forward.
Hey, man, you work pretty hard. You should be getting some of the extra love in there in the press box for sure.
But no, that game, Randall and Terry. I mean, obviously you got to feel sorry for Terry in some ways, but you know what? They're a football team. They're out there to play football. And like Randall, I mean, I don't think they need to apologize for anything. I mean, they still got to play their players. They still got to go through a plan that they have. I mean, other teams do the same thing. Iowa Colony, I'm sure, play some weak teams in their district.
Yeah.
And other teams do the same. So, it's unfortunate that it has to happen like that sometimes. 70-0 it's not overscoring on the scoreboard. To me, it isn't.
Yeah.
It's playing your game and making sure that what you need to work on, you do, and that's it.
Well, and not all blowouts are created equally, right? Like, there are games and there are programs, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, right? But there are programs that up big in the second half will keep onside kicking, keep going for 2, keep throwing the ball. It certainly feels like this game against Terry, the blowout win that they had against Baytown Lee a couple of weeks ago now, that's just how the game shook out. It's you can only have so many drives starting with short fields and great field position. You can only have so many times where you hand the ball off to Landon Williams-Callis, and you're just trying to keep the clock running, and he breaks a long one for a score. Sometimes it just happens. And realistically, especially you talk about the high school game, and I love the phrase any given day, right? Any given Sunday, your team can win. And to an extent, sure. But there's echelons to that. And when you have a team that is at the top of its game like Randall is, and you're going up against a young team with a thinner roster like what Terry has, look, I'm not trying to be, like I said, I'm not trying to knock anything that Coach Jackson and the Rangers are doing, but I think you play that game 100 times, and it's going to end the same way 100 times. That's just how talent disparities play out at the high school level. And like you said, you can't blame Randall and the Lions for that. That's just how she goes.
Yep. They need to work on certain things.
Yeah.
The only way to do it is during the game. That's when it works better. Unfortunately, it had to be Terry. And of course, You might see another one this week as well.
And probably likely the week after that.
Yep.
That's just the way the schedule went for Randall this year.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, it was a good weekend. Nobody had any problems with anything. Nobody broke anything. It seems like I didn't see anything or hear anything about Lamar and Terry or Lamar and Texas City. But as far as anything else happening, I mean, we just rock and rolled.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're going to dive into the action here, starting with our Thursday contest, a really, really big win for Foster over A-Leaf Hastings.
It was a good night for the Foster Falcons as they blanked the A-Leaf Hastings Bears 23-0. A good night because the Falcons have come all the way back from an 0-4 start to now on the verge of possibly getting into the Class 6A Division II football playoffs. Of course, some things have to happen for that to come to reality. But overall, the Falcons handled the Bears pretty easily during the 4 periods on Thursday night. What was at stake for the Falcons was to continue playing after the regular season. As for A-Leaf, nothing but being a spoiler to another team trying to get to a certain place. Now, last year, during this first meeting ever between both teams, the Falcons celebrated at clinching a playoff spot with that 21-6 victory last year. Now, after a scoreless first quarter on Thursday night, Foster went to work, winding up with a 27-yard field goal from freshman Zach Del Jose with more than 10 minutes before halftime. The Falcons didn't have to wait long to get the ball back because K.J. Keller got the first of 2 interceptions in the second quarter. That was a second INT for Foster as Langston Hogan got one in the first period. Using the running legs of junior Jordan Williams and the passing from Cannon Wolf, the Falcons made it to the 6-yard line. Well, Wolf went back to pass, but a rush got on him and he couldn't find anyone, so he tucked it and went left, plowing at the goal line, but still had the power to get into the end zone with a 9-0 lead after the 2-point conversion was missed. There was no more scoring after that, but Keller did get his second INT, though Foster wasn't able to take advantage of it. The Foster defense held the Bear offense to 104 yards in the first half, but they did run the ball for more than 100 yards with the running of Alton Hayes and Matthew Onwuchuraba. At the start of the third period, the Bears were getting the ball, but they fumbled with Foster Jr. Darian Opara recovering to set them up in Bear territory. After a few runs by the Falcons, senior Byron Fantroy took a snap and went left for the final 22 yards into the end zone and a 16-0 lead after Coalay's extra point. Foster then got its 4th INT of the game when senior captain Eli Smith tugged the ball away from the receiver. Again with a short field, the Falcons got to the 41 of the Bears when they struck again. Looking for a quick score, they found it with Wolf finding Julius Brown 41 yards downfield in the end zone for the final points. Now, after the game, the Falcons celebrated like they had clinched a spot in the playoffs. But they weren't still in yet, but Coach Shane Hanks got a cold bath to pre-celebrate the occasion. If Foster did make it to a second year in a row, they did, because George Ranch lost to Fulshear on Friday night, and Katy Taylor lost to Strake Jesuit. So that locks the Falcons into the playoffs for the second year in a row.
In need of a partner to help you reach your financial goals? Houston Federal Credit Union is your local credit union. With checking accounts, savings accounts, auto loans, mortgage loans, business loans, and credit cards, Houston Federal Credit Union can help you achieve all of your financial dreams. Find out more information at houstonfcu.org to apply online for a loan or membership, and find out more information about how they can help you get where you want to go. I'm going to do my game recap here a little bit differently than I normally do. This week, with the state water polo final being in San Antonio and all that kind of entails with us on a coverage side of it, I actually did not catch any high school football this weekend. It's the first week that I've not had. I guess you can call it a bye week for me on the football slate. Felt a little weird to not be in a press box Thursday night or Friday night or Saturday night, but just duty called elsewhere. But if you'll indulge me here for just a minute, everybody has art that means something to them. Everybody has, whether it's a movie or a band or, particular artist at an art installation that you just really love to go and take in their work. Everybody has something that means a lot to them. And I just want to take this opportunity to say, if you ever have a moment where it's even a little bit feasible for you to see one of your bucket list artists, one of your bucket list acts, one of your, man, I need to see this before it's too late. Don't even think twice about that opportunity. I was driving out towards San Antonio this weekend, Thursday night, while Foster was playing A-Leaf Hastings, and heard on the radio on my way out of a concert that was being played at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio Saturday night. So, of course, after the state final matches would have concluded at Josh Davis Natatorium. And I was staying with a buddy of mine, kind of save on hotel costs on the trip. And him and I each have that same bucket list artist. We've talked about it since we were in college together, that, hey, if we ever get a chance to see so-and-so, we're going to jump and do it. And when I mentioned that artist was performing at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, it became an immediate hunt to see what tickets looked like, thinking that they were going to be well out of range based on everything we had heard from the tour. So Saturday night when we got to go to the Alamo Dome and watch Sir Paul McCartney perform was one of the coolest moments I've ever had in my entire life. I grew up listening to the Beatles and to Wings, and at a certain point to me, it just felt like one of those things that I was just never going to have an opportunity to do, was to see Paul McCartney perform live. I obviously knew you were never going to see the Beatles play in full, but for me, Paul McCartney was and is the greatest living artist on the planet. And that moment of him walking out on stage and just having that 3-hour-long feeling in your chest of just shock and disbelief, that standing in front of you and singing your favorite songs in front of 80,000 other people who love them just as much as you do, was truly one of the coolest nights, the most emotionally significant nights of my life. So while I didn't get to watch a lot of football, I did have an opportunity to do something that, I don't like to take for granted, which is to cross a life goal off of your list. So I just want to say, no matter what the ticket price was for us, really at the end of the day, as long as it was something that we could, realistically afford, it was worth the extra driving, the extra time, the more cramped schedule for me on Sunday, getting back for the college basketball preview exhibition between, Texas A&M, Arizona State, and then Houston and Mississippi State at the Epicenter Sunday night. So I just want to take this moment to say, if you have that moment, if you have that artist that you want to see, that you need to see before it's too late, do what you can to do it. It's worth it. Life is about creating memories that you'll never forget with the people that you love the most, and being able to go to that concert with somebody who has been one of my best friends for over 10 years, who stood up in my wedding. It's just something I'm truly never going to forget, and it's something that I hope that each and every one of you at some point in your lives gets to do. It was really, really, really that powerful. So, getting back on topic here a little bit. Friday night at Stingery Stadium, Lamar Consolidated had a tough time against a really, really good Texas City defense. Of course, this is the Stingery unit that held Randall to 25 points back earlier in the season. 25 points, guys. I mean, that's the lowest scoring output that the Lions had in a game since the regional final, the 21-14 win over Iowa Colony in overtime back at NRG Stadium last December. Closest, the lowest scoring output in the regular season since the 2023 season for Randall. So that's a defense that can play, and unfortunately for the Lamar Consolidated Mustangs, that really reared its head. Lamar had 79 total yards. All of them came through the air on Edgar Garcia's arm. 10 of 21 throwing the ball for 79 yards. The Mustangs had a combined 0 yards on 20 carries in the ground game. And again, that's size up front, size up front, size up front. You knew this was going to be a tough matchup for Lamar Consolidated in that respect. The Stings have felt all season long like the likely fourth playoff team in that district behind Randall, Iowa Colony, and Fort Bend Marshall. So where does this leave Lamar Consolidated? They've got 2 games left. They play Santa Fe. Pardon me. Not Santa Fe. Lamar Consolidated plays Baytown Lee next week and then closes the year the following Saturday at Traylor Stadium against Randall. So the Mustangs have an opportunity, realistically, to pick up one more win before the season's over. Would give them a record at 3-7, presumably, right? I don't want to say anything is a foregone conclusion, but we know what that Randall Lions team is bringing to the table, certainly at that point in the year, trying to tune up for that postseason run and hopefully another trip to Arlington in the state championships to defend their title from a season ago. But it still feels like the Mustangs are moving in the right direction. It still does. They put up 20 points against that defense. That's only 5 fewer than what Randall did. And they haven't really, with the exception of course, playing Iowa Colony, and they had a tough one against Marshall, but really haven't had a disaster performance. Do you want to call it losing the lead late and dropping the Battle of the Berg to Terry in overtime? Perhaps. But it wasn't anything that went drastically wrong. It was just a series of smaller things. So it feels like the Mustangs are moving in the right direction, and if they can keep that momentum going into next year, a lot can change when we're talking district realignment and who they're matched up with. So there has been plenty to like for the Mustangs. And as I said, moving forward into next week against Baytown Lee, a very winnable game and hopefully giving that team a bright spot as we look forward to 2026.
In need of professional care with a personal touch? Physical Therapy Care and Aquatic Rehab of Fort Bend can get you back to work, life, and play free from pain. With locations in Richmond and the Fulshear Katy area, Physical Therapy Care and Aquatic Rehab of Fort Bend offers orthopedics, sports medicine, vertigo and balance rehab, and post-surgical rehab, and more. Call today at 281-344-8900 and find out how Physical Therapy Care and Aquatic Rehab of Fort Bend can listen, educate, and return you to functional independence.
Friday night at Kenneth Hall Stadium in Missouri City, it was the Needville Blue Jays taking on a really, really talented and athletic state contender in 4A D1 in the Fort Bend Crawford Chargers. And the Chargers looked the part, much like they did in the state 7-on-7 SQT tournament, not the state tournament, but the state qualifying tournament at Needville High School over the summer. The Jays were just too much overall. Just plain and simply. They outgained Needville 481-100 in the contest. The Blue Jays lost 2 fumbles. They fumbled the ball 4 times. They were without the contributions of junior back Kobe Campbell, who has played a really, really big role the last couple of years in that backfield. Cameron Hall alongside him, at the quarterback position. Hall had a touchdown run. 7-yard score was the only score for Needville in the game. So the Jays now have a road game at Fort Bend Willow Ridge this week coming up at Kenneth Hall Stadium. So going back to the same location. And for the Jays, a win over the Eagles would put them into the postseason already ahead of a really, really big game at Spartan Stadium in Stafford. The Blue Jays had a big win over Willow Ridge a season ago, but they can't be complacent because they know if they lose this game next week to Willow Ridge, it becomes a winner-take-all against a win or else, I should say, game on the road in the final week of the season. That's really at the point of the year where this team wants to be fine-tuning and dialing and locking in for the postseason. They don't want to be playing for their playoff lives before the tournament even starts. It's going to be a big opportunity for the Jays at Hall Stadium against Willow Ridge. But fortunately, the Jays kind of have a little bit of experience turning the page. They are unbeaten following each of their losses so far this season. So if the Jays are able to turn the page and right the ship just a little bit, theoretically, we should see this team back in the postseason, which would give us, what is that, a fourth playoff team, maybe a fifth playoff team if the cards fall right for George Ranch. So a lot to look for with the Jays, despite a tough loss last week, for this week, to the Chargers.
Looking to make your next real estate move but unsure where to start? The Ace Hernandez team at Manor Lane Southwest has you covered. The Ace Hernandez team is Fort Bend and Southwest Houston's real estate experts with 75 years of experience in guiding homeowners and home buyers alike. Contact the Ace Hernandez team at 281-762-6757 and find out more about their seller financing options today.
Boy, that gamer between the Fulshear Chargers and George Ranch Longhorns turned out to be an offensive explosion with more than 1,000 yards of offense and more than 100 points scored on Friday night at Guy K. Traylor Memorial Stadium. And I didn't anticipate that high-scoring game like that. In fact, I maybe thought that Fulshear could do that, but George Ranch, I really didn't have much chance could do that. And they didn't have a very good start. They were outscored 14-0 in the first quarter. But it happened, and that's the way the ball rolls sometimes. Now, the two played as part of District 26A, and even though Fulshear, 4-1, 6-3 overall, stayed in second place, the Longhorns dropped to 1-3 in District, 3-5 overall, but not yet out of the playoff picture. Believe that. That's because the Ranch still has 2 games remaining against A-Leaf Taylor and A-Leaf Hastings. 2 beatable teams. Now, in order for the Longhorns to wind up in the top 4, A-Leaf Elsick has to drop both final games against Fulshear and A-Leaf Taylor for the Horns to get in. It's a slim chance, but at this point, that is better than nothing at all. All right, in the 106-point game between George and Fulshear, there are 1,070 yards of offense gained between both teams. At first, it seemed like a runaway with the Chargers building a 49-7 lead. But right before the break, Ellison Collins IV caught a 75-yard bomb from Tony Morrison to go in with some momentum off of that score, only down 49-14. Now, it was significant because a different Longhorn bunch came out of the locker room and outscored Fulshear 28-14 in the second half to at least makes it close in some way. Now, Fulshear built that first half lead with 459 total yards of offense as quarterback Sean Patel was 18 of 29 with no interceptions and 310 yards and 5 touchdowns. Junior wideout Ryland Forks had 8 catches for 136 and 3 of those scores, as they had 18 first downs. The Longhorns had 2 scores were from big plays, with Collins IV getting one of those, and also senior running back Hayden Drinkard getting a 75-yard run. Now, in that second half, George Ranch seemed more in control of themselves and the offense, with Drinkard scoring 3 more rushing touchdowns, including an 87-yarder, which gave him 212 yards on 15 carries for the game. Overall, it was an exciting matchup with lots of points and lots of excitement amongst the fans watching those big plays back and forth, kind of like a tennis match. Fulshear finished with 635 total yards and 29 first downs, with GR getting 435 and 14 first downs. Now, the Chargers will finish up the regular season this week by hosting A-Leaf Elsick on Halloween night at 7 p.m. at Traylor Stadium. Getting a win solidifies second place for them, but it also might help George Ranch get in as well. Now, the Longhorns will be at Leroy Crump Stadium to take on A-Leaf Taylor in a must-win situation. Also, on Halloween night. Boo! Well, let me start off by sending kudos to whoever made the breakfast for the press box at Guy K. Trader Memorial Stadium on Saturday morning, because the biscuits and bacon were fabuloso. I only had 2, and boy, that was delicious. Alrighty, so at hand was the Randall Lions visiting the Terry Rangers, and with both teams going in different directions, so did the game to a tune of 70-0 in favor of the Lions. Now they scored 10 touchdowns in the contest, which went all 4 quarters, incidentally, as they operated to 638 yards offensively with 29 first downs. Now, just 68 seconds into the contest, the Lions got on the board with wide receiver Cedric McClintock catching a 26-yard pass from Tyler Skrabanek for a 7-0 lead. But that happened because Randall got an onside kick to start the game and recovered the ball. Now, some of these cats that scored against the Rangers aren't normally the usual ones, like when they played against Fort Bend Marshall, Iowa Colony, or Texas City. Some of these mentioned are backups or players just doing the right thing and getting that game time because of practice, a la Allen Iverson. Second score was McClintock and Skrabanek again for 7 yards, 14-zip. Randall recovered a fumble for that one. Now the third score was from Denham Hunt on a 5-yard end-around, a name I'd never heard before, but now we have. A familiar cat, of course, was Landon Williams-Callis, who scored back-to-back TDs with a 15-yarder, finishing off the first half with a 35-0 lead. Now, about this time, I was getting hangry again, so I went to look for more biscuits, which I didn't find, but I found some more bacon, and that was yummy. Now, Williams-Callis scored again to start the third period, 42-0, and he dragged a couple of Rangers into the end zone. Now, one cat we don't hear much about is a starter. It's tight end Mason Mixon, as he got on the scoreboard with an 18-yard throw from Skrabanek to make it 49-0. Now, the backup to Williams-Callis is Amari Louisville, and he got his fill of carries during the game, and 2 of them included back-to-back scores with runs of 1 and 2 yards for a 63-0 lead. Now, I'd say around this time, about the third period or so, the clock would keep moving, which wasn't a bad idea, and that was good. Another new player that scored was Judah Edomobi, a wide receiver who caught a 13-yard pass from backup QB Brady Batcher, with Raul Vega kicking all of those extra points. Enough said.
This week's Area Scoreboard brought to you by Bull Creek Cafe, Grill, and Bar. Bull Creek Mesquite Grill at 918 San Jacinto Street in Rosenberg, across from Burke's Outlet. Find out what made them a Reader's Choice winner in the 2024 Fort Bend Herald Best of Fort Bend County. With good game day, good taste, and good times, offering steaks, grilled salmon, burgers, catfish, nachos, liver, and onions with a happy hour Tuesday to Saturday 3 to 6, and daily drink specials, Bull Creek Mesquite Grill. And a lot of action around the weekend instead of breaking it up day by day just because we were light on Saturday. A lot of weather impacting when and where games were being played this week. We'll dive right in. On Thursday, Fort Bend Ridgepoint 70-0 over the Rangers of Clements as the Panthers stay undefeated. Elkins blanks Dulles 56-0, and Cinco Ranch with a big win for playoff seedings, 23-16 over Maid Creek. Talked about this a little bit earlier in the pod, but that win is going to put Katy in 6A D2 in the postseason, so shaking that race up a little bit, of course, in that division. Katy Tompkins 32 over Seven Lakes' 7. Santa Fe beat Baytown Lee 35-14 in 5A D2. Friday's action, Strake Jesuit, of course, staying in first place in District 26A, 49-28 win over A-Leaf Taylor, while Fort Bend Hightower beats Austin 63-7, and Katy beating Peyto 55-21. Also up in Katy, the Warriors of Jordan High School beating Taylor 56-6, while Angleton blanks Fort Bend Kempner 49-0. We talked about this as well. Iowa Colony 21-0 over Fort Bend Marshall as the Pioneers' only loss remains that meeting with the Randall Lions. Bay City won the oldest rivalry game in the state of Texas, beating El Campo 35-17, while Stafford beat Brazosport 34-20, and Wharton with a big blanking of Katy Harmony 74-0. Also going on Friday, Vanderbilt Industrial 43 over Bowling 28, while East Bernard doubled up Brazos 42-21. Yorktown blanked Louise 44-0 in two-way action. And on Saturday, Travis, a lot of points scored in this game, 55-29 over the Broncos of Bush, and Navasota beating Willow. This week's number is brought to you by Dr. Kyle D. McCrae, your home for dentistry, creating healthy, beautiful smiles in the Richmond-Rosenberg area since 1994. Call Dr. McCrae at 281-342-2121 and learn more about their office, their outstanding team, and the services they offer. From checkups to implants to braces, they want to be your home for dentistry. Kyle McCrae Dental. And Joel, a lot going on. I know, it's always a little bit more fun, with different elements when it's our teams playing against each other, and we kind of like to see how they stack up, how they affect each other's playoff races. What stood out for you numbers-wise this week?
This week, and just kind of looking forward a little bit, I'm looking at the districts in our local teams. Looks like we might have 3 teams from 26A, Foster, Fulshear, and George Ranch maybe in the playoffs. Yes. So that's a good thing. Of course, George Ranch is the one that's going to need some outside help from somebody, but as long as they're still in it all the way to the final week, there's always that chance, okay? The number one and the big one in 5A, 9-5A Division II, Randall. Yeah. I don't think there's anybody else locally that can, even though Terry goes into the week still there, but they're facing Iowa Colony.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unless if Iowa Colony comes down with the flu with a whole team and they have to play the JV, even that might be a problem. I hate to say it.
There's some serious athletes over there, and I was really interested in that Iowa Colony Fort Bend Marshall game this past week and kind of seeing what a more healthy Marshall team, because remember when they played Randall earlier in the year, they were without Caden Johnson. When they lost to Santa Fe earlier in the year, they were without Caden Johnson, the big A&M commit at quarterback. I was interested in how that element would impact the matchup between the Pioneers and the Buffs. 21-0 win for Iowa Colony, I think, says all that you need to know about what that team is all about on that side. Yep. We know the kind of fight they gave Randall. They're the only team so far that has given them any sort of fight. I mean, you can argue the Texas City game is closer than a lot of folks would have anticipated. But you go up 21-0 on the Randall Lions, it takes quite a lot to do that. Even if there was good fortune involved to an extent, that district, right, with Randall, Iowa Colony, and Marshall at the top of it, you knew going in, everybody else was playing for one spot in the postseason. Yep. So it was going to be a tough road for Terry and Lamar anyway. Young teams, hopefully both of them, I think, moving in the right direction, from what we saw a year ago. So hopefully they can keep building on that. Yep. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen for them this season, right, but you lay some groundwork and it makes it a little bit easier to build for the future.
It looks good. It looks good for them, and you want to keep seeing that.
Yeah.
You want to keep seeing the positive on those teams and moving forward. Now, as far as the last district, 12-4A Division I with Needville. Now, they beat Willow Ridge on Friday. They are in the playoffs because if they lose to them, they have Stafford next week.
Yeah.
Stafford and Crawford are on top right now, 3-0. They meet this Friday, those two juggernauts.
And we knew I got to see Needville play Crawford in 7-on-7 at the Needville SQT state qualifying tournament back over the summer. Knew going in with guys like Alvin Mosley that's just athletes up and down the roster. That's a state contender in 4A D1 with Fort Bend Crawford. I was interested in see how that would work in 11-man. I hate to say I'm not super surprised to see that final score. It's not a knock on Needville. I think that just Crawford is heads and shoulders the class of that district. But like you said, you've got to hope that they can avoid that bigger matchup against the Spartans by beating a Willow Ridge team. Now Willow Ridge, look, they had a tough loss to Navasota last week. They didn't They gave up 42 points to the Rattlers. That was a shootout as well for Needville. They were able to score a little bit more. I know transitive property doesn't really work in sports where, Willerwood scored 20 against a team that, Needville put 35 on, right? Like, it doesn't translate quite like that. But I think if you're the Blue Jays, you like the matchup going into it, and you have to take this as an opportunity to punch your ticket now and prevent any slipping for moving forward.
But of course, they were missing Kobe Campbell last week.
Yes,
and even you said the week before
only 2 carries. I saw that. I was like, man, I'm hoping that it wasn't anything injury wise, but from the looks of it, from the sounds of it, he was out. So hopefully, we see him back on the field very soon. He's a great kid, really, really good player. That means a lot to that offense.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall at that press box at Stafford Stadium on Friday.
Yeah.
Just to take a gander and see what's going on. I think that's going to be a very, very good game. Okay, so this past weekend, we were 1-2 because of our odd schedule that we had. We had 4 local teams playing each other with Fulshear and George Ranch, and also who's the other one?
Fulshear, George Ranch, and then Randall Terry.
Randall and Terry. So Foster, big win. Texas City, of course, over Lamarcon. Fort Bend Crawford over Needville. We got outscored 80-50 this past weekend.
Yeah, that's tough, but as we talked about, it's really good offense for Crawford.
Yep.
Texas City has a pretty good team. Senior quarterback Clyde Votaw was a good player for them last year. Yeah, that's a good defense on the other side. It makes things tough to keep the scoring a little bit lower.
As far as the schedule, this week on Thursday it'll be Baytown Lee and Lamarcon, and second meeting between both with the Ganders getting a 55-13 victory last season. I don't think that's going to happen this season. By listening and watching and looking at Lamarcon, at times have very, very good games like they did against Texas City, at least in the first half. I mean, they were right there at halftime. So you never know. I mean, I've been wrong before, but just looks like the Mustangs might play that first half against Texas City. They might get a win on Thursday night, which would be their first in district and the first one for the first-year coach.
Would love to see that for the Mustangs. Man, they work hard. They've been in games late that just haven't been able to make enough plays to finish them out, and being able to kind of get some high notes. Of course, they're playing Randall to close the year, so getting an opportunity to maybe get one more win on the year and take that into the offseason and use it to keep getting better.
And that's a 6 p.m. start on Thursday at Guy K. Traylor Memorial Stadium. On Friday, A-Leaf Elsik will be at Fulshear. Again, second meeting between these two as well, with the Chargers taking care of them last year, 42-16. It could happen again, but Elsik is not a pushover.
Yeah, no, Caden Mendenhall's a heck of a player. They've got a lot of speed at receiver. They score points, man. Yeah. You're gonna have to keep they're gonna have to keep up with Fulshear, but Fulshear's gonna have to keep up with Elsik too. They don't want to get into a hole.
Fulshear better not squint, and they better bring that passing game of theirs because they're gonna need it.
Yes.
Next one is George Ranch at A-Leaf Taylor. Both of these games will be on Friday at the Crump Stadium. It'll be a 7 p.m. Kickoff. Tight one last season with the Longhorns pulling it out 24-21. Now, George Ranch will be score watching because they have an outside opportunity to, once again, we mentioned it, to get in.
Yeah.
A-Leaf Elsik has to lose his last 2 games, and George must win the last 2 games. So, there's a chance.
Yeah.
There's a possibility.
Absolutely.
I mean, they get by that Taylor team, and they'll be right there, especially if Fulshear takes care of business. So that's a 7 p.m. kickoff once again at Crump Stadium. Randall at Santa Fe Indian Stadium. I don't think this one will be as easy as maybe last year, 68-0 for the Lions, especially on the road with all of those Indians all over the place, and I do mean the football players. Okay, this one could be fun for a bit.
Yeah.
For a bit, all right? That's a 7 p.m. start. Terry at Iowa Colony at Freedom Field. The Rangers didn't have any fun versus Randall. I don't think this one is going to change much with the Pioneers at their home.
Yeah.
This could be a repeat of this past Saturday's melee. Also, we mentioned Needville at Fort Bend Willow Ridge, 7 p.m. start at Kenneth Hall Stadium. Now, we mentioned the Blue Jays must win some district games. They are 1-1 right now. They've got to win this one for sure. And like I mentioned before, you look at the standings, you win this one, you're in. That's all you need.
Yeah, they need to get that second win. A little bit of a tough. Actually, 1-2. They lost to Navasota and to Crawford. So far, but of course, getting a big win last week kind of helped right the ship, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, to right the ship. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, you win Willow Ridge, that's the ball game really at this point. You get into the playoffs and you see what happens from there.
And Campbell must be there. He's got to be there. He's got to be recovered and be there. They won last year 56-27.
Yeah.
Now Foster is on a bye this week. So that means that for us, no Saturday game. When was the last time we had a Saturday off?
It's been a while.
Give me a date.
Give you a date. Last Saturday off, I'm going to say probably the end of August, maybe?
Nope, October 3rd.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago. There we go.
That's when a majority of our teams had byes that week.
No, you're right. It was the 5A bye week. Yep, you got me there.
But you know what? We don't have a Saturday game next week either. So
yeah. Well, no, actually, Lamar Consolidated and Randall is 11 a.m. on Saturday next week.
That's right. Okay. They must have changed that on my schedule.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, a lot of cool stuff. As you get closer to the end of the year, right, it's always fun to kind of chase those, the playoff standings and see where, who's going to fall, and right in 6A, trying to see what's going to be. It looks like Katy is going to be in 6A D2 this year, which I'm talking to Coach Shane Hanks about that in San Antonio at the water polo tournament this weekend. He's not thrilled at the idea of the Tigers being 6A D2. I don't think anybody would be, but he's happy they're going to be in the postseason again. He's as optimistic as Coach Hanks is, right? He's also hey, I'm not going to put anything. I'm not going to count my chickens before they're hatched. I saw him. I congratulated him on the win, that they had on Thursday night, and I said that puts you in, right? He goes, well, no. We still need Alex Taylor to lose, so I'm not celebrating anything quite yet. Yeah, I got the Gatorade dumped on me and everything, but I'm still treating it as if we've got work to do to get into the playoffs. And, of course, with Strake Jesuit winning that game over the Lions, put Foster in, officially lock it in, stamp their ticket. They're in and good to go. Heck of a job by that coaching staff to get the Falcons back into the playoffs.
As he mentioned before, look, we're in the playoffs. We're going to go wherever we have to go to the playoffs. So it doesn't matter where we're at as long as we're in it. If it's Katy, let's go to Katy. And
I love it. It was interesting because I reading your story and from talking to him a couple weeks ago, he gave us kind of the same quote. He goes, when you plug something into your GPS, a destination into your GPS, and once you get to that destination, you don't really care about the route that you took to get there. All that matters is that you got there. Yep. So, the 0-4, 0-5 start that they had to the year feels awfully far behind him now that they're celebrating that they get to look ahead to the postseason, when that certainly was not a foregone conclusion at the beginning of the year.
And that's why they call it the second season.
And it's time for our Natural Springs Water Filtration Player of the Week. Customized water filtration, one system that fits all your needs. Natural Springs Water Filtration, our business is improving your water. And again, of course, a busy week. A lot of big performances all the way across. A couple that stood out, but I want to talk a little bit about Hayden Drinkard and his performance, about tightening that game in the second half for George Ranch and really getting those offensive wheels spinning for the Longhorns. I thought that Tyler Skrbanek had a nice performance, 4 touchdowns, in the win over Terry as well. Talk a lot about Landon Williams-Gallis and what he's doing offensively, but I think that passing game feels like it's really evolved vertically in a big way for Randall.
He's got more receivers. I
Big
think
time.
He's got more receivers, and having more receivers is always a good thing. So with him having different kinds of receivers out there makes it better for him. He can look anywhere, and he can go anywhere.
And I think the receiving core last year for Randall, right? Like you had Keelan Sweeney catching passes. Jackson Montalongo was a factor for them as well. You still had Cedric McClintock and Mason Mixon, out there as well. But different types of receivers, I think that they had kind of more gadget guys, little quick throws and try and get blockers downfield and move the ball that way. He said a lot more verticality. Ashton Johnson's played a really, really big role in the middle of the field. Kamar Chavez-Brown he's kind of emerging as that perimeter threat for them as well. Of course, with Mixon, who just committed to West Point, and he's going to be playing for the Army Black Knights. At the tight end position, McClintock has moved from tight end to wide receiver. He caught a couple touchdown passes as well.
He's picked up his game a lot.
Yeah.
From last year to this year, going from tight end to wide receiver. I mean, look at his body.
Yeah.
He's not as bulky as he used to be. He's quicker.
Yep.
And you got more speed with those wide receivers. So, I mean, that really plays a big role with him. If he can just keep up with the receivers themselves, scrap and act, that is, and make sure and throw those passes the way he should, he'll be fine.
It's hard enough to keep Williams Callis fenced in with 8 guys in the box, even, right? But when you can sit there and you have those guys on the outside take the top off, drop the safeties downfield, and create space for those blockers to set up holes for Landon Williams Callis, genuinely no idea how you're supposed to stop that.
Yep.
Just no idea. So anyway...
And I just thought of something, and we were talking about it before we even started recording right now, but you mentioned, well, who is a good MVP and this week and this week? You know, I think it should be a combination. A combination of, Patel.
Yep.
And also his wide receiver.
Yeah, Ryland Forks and Sean Patel, that connection. We've talked about that before. You featured that growing connection between last year's starting quarterback for the Chargers and this year's starting quarterback for the Chargers. Now, of course, Forks playing receiver, playing a little, running game, feature as well for the Chargers. But, yeah, they really shined on Friday.
I mean, during the games this year, in some ways, he's found ways to get open. No matter what secondary is back there, that kid can get open. Yeah. He knows how to do it. He is just a playmaker. So, I mean, this past week, he just went off. And, of course, the first half, and by the time he finished, he had 11 catches for what? Over 200 yards, something like that.
4 scores, and it's 40. It's you'll take that any day of the week.
Yep.
And we've talked at length now about what Fulshear has been doing in terms of moving the needle offensively, right? Transitioning from being the Patrick Broadway, Zane Smith, and Demarius Fro-led running attack that they had last year to this diverse Stephen Hill passing game that he loves to implement, has created a ton of points throughout his career. This connection right here is the biggest reason, in my opinion, for why the Chargers have been able to take those steps forward so far.
And as we say that, Collins, who's just a sophomore, came out this past weekend and ran for 95 yards. And he looked the part. 62-yarder down the sideline, showed all of his athletics there. His speed, just his push away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Showed it.
And it feels like that's been the missing piece so far in this offense, is having a reliable ground game that they can. It's not even so much a yards per carry kind of thing, too, because like Collins can, there have been games, 4 carries, 40 some odd yards, but you can tell, certainly with his size and his age, I think there's a little bit of a concern about putting a lot of load on him right now in terms of, taking big hits at the 6A level. If they can continue to kind of get him more and more involved in the ground game, diversify what they're doing, kind of the reverse of what Randall is, right? Like if you can incorporate more of the ground game, will open up more opportunities in the passing game as those safeties have to come up.
And according to Hill, a turf toe had been bothering him the past few weeks.
We have got to come up with a better name for for that injury than turf toe, right? Because you hear that and you're like, "What, a toe injury?"
Yeah.
What do you? But what I mean in it is like it's a much nastier injury than it sounds like. It is your foot getting caught, and it's a tearing, ripping of the tendon at the bottom of your foot.
Yeah.
You see it with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, right? Like out for just about the entire season with this injury because of that tear to the ligament in his foot. Like I said, you hear turf toe and you're like, well, why are guys out for weeks on end with a toe injury? We're playing football here. That's a brutal injury, and if that's really what's been holding him back, man, this offense could look a lot different in the playoffs.
And I probably shouldn't say this, but my toe, my right hand toe, it went over by a forklift.
Okay,
split it open. Oh. So if you don't know what a turf toe feels, it's just bruisey and it's very tender. Well, my toe felt exactly the same, and I was off my leg for about 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, it's brutal.
I mean, injury to that toe is it's kind of hard to get over with.
Yeah. So hopefully this is a good sign for Collins and for the Chargers moving forward, that he can continue to get healthy, stay healthy, and provide. At this point, really, you're adding a ground game to that formula on offense. That is a almost like a new addition, right? It's almost like you went out and traded for somebody and they came onto the roster and you've added a player there. Really opens up what you can do on that side of the ball.
And I really do think that Fulshear has moved forward.
Yeah.
They've already got their own face this year. Mm-hmm. They've got it. They're not looking back anymore. They don't have to. They got football players on this team, and you're right. I mean, he's looking for a long run in the playoffs. You never know. It might happen.
So that is our Player of the Week here, again brought to you by Natural Springs Water Filtration. It's going to be the combination, the passing connection of Sean Patel to Ryland Forks, and another big win for the Fulshear Chargers as they try to keep pace with Strake Jesuit there in the top of that District 26A race. Probably won't catch them for that district title, but as long as they stay in that 2 spot in 6A D1, set themselves up for a little bit of a run in the postseason, hopefully.
Yep.
And of course, as we're talking postseason implications for these regular season football games, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't point out a couple other postseason accomplishments coming up this week. Of course, state cross-country meet in Round Rock is coming up this weekend. Needville's Kylie Montalvo is going to represent 4A runners at Needville High School on the race on Saturday morning. Cooper McGrainer for Foster and Shepherdstein for Fulshear will be running in the 6A boys race also on Saturday. Then our lone runner on Friday out of Lamar Consolidated, Natalie Trevino, another trip to state for Trevino. Her, Montalvo, and Steen all went to state last year as well, so return trips for 3 of the 4. Congratulations go out to those runners. We're excited to see them run at Old Settlers Park in Round Rock. Of course, the 5A race being Friday, and then the 4A and 6A races taking place on Saturday. So best of luck to those 3. Another playoff getting started this week. Volleyball. We're gonna be seeing some volleyball postseason. Of course, Fulshear, the state runners up in 6A D1 a year ago, falling to Conroe Grand Oaks in the title round at Garland. What's that schedule looking like for us this week as we get ready to dive into that tournament?
So we got 5 local teams in the playoffs. That's always a good thing. So Fulshear is back in D1. They'll be facing Cinco Ranch on Thursday at 5:30, and they'll be home. So that's good for them. Another home team, Division II, Katie Jordan at Foster. That's a 5:30 start as well. The other one will be Needville, and they're going to drive a little bit. They're taking on Beeville, and there'll be a 6 o'clock start at Victoria West High School.
Okay, good neutral round matchup the first round,
Yeah, Region 4. I mean, it's always tough, and if Needville wins, which we expect them to do, they got Cal Island next week. So it's not an easy second round for them. And as far as the 5 or 6A and 5A schools, I mean, it's going to be tough, man. It'll be tough for them. It won't be easy. So now we do have a couple of Friday games. George Ranch at Katie Tompkins. That'll be a 5 o'clock start. That'll be at Katie Tompkins. And also Randall taking on Galena Park. And that'll be a 7 p.m. start at Butler Fieldhouse on Friday. So 2 Friday games right there.
Excited to get into that action, man. Postseason volleyball is always pretty cool, and it's always something a little bit different. And obviously, of course, best of luck to those teams there. And then I wanted to take another moment. We talked about them a little bit in last week's show. Of course, the Foster boys and girls water polo teams going to Josh Davis Natatorium in San Antonio over the weekend with the semifinal matches on Friday. And it was a little bit of a disappointment in terms of the end result for both of those teams. The boys losing to Louisville Hebron by a couple of goals, and the girls also losing by 2 to Louisville Marcus. For the boys, unfortunately, it's just a continuation of the same struggles they've had in that semifinal round. They are now 0-4 all time in state semifinals at the UIL level. At least they've made all 4 state tournaments that the UIL has ever hosted, but they just haven't been able to get that first round win. And for the girls, a little bit different. It is similar in that they have made every state tournament ever at the UIL level. But it was the first time they've ever lost in a semifinal. They were 3-0 in semifinal rounds beforehand. I said this to a couple folks at the game. I talked to Coach Hanks after the game. I talked to Coach Nick Colzer, for the water polo team after the game. The girls' match felt very, very similar to the title game loss to Brazos Wood in overtime a year ago. There were scoring parallels there. They had 3-goal leads a couple times early. It's tied 9-9. Their first deficit was 10-9 in the match. It was very, very similar, just in scoring, but also just the way that the game felt. Marcus made a couple of adjustments, brought the defense out up top, really pressured Foster's ability to move the ball around the net. If you can't move the ball around it, it's even tougher to work it inside. And that's, a lot of teams try to take away the inside by just clogging that up. But Foster's got shooters from distance that they can take advantage of that space, cheat up a little bit, and shoot from maybe a little bit further than a lot of teams are willing to. That wasn't really the case. Marcus decided what they could do is take away those passing lanes up top, which really just eliminated Foster's ability to work it out in the middle at all, and then they were no longer able to shoot from outside. Wow. So after an early fast start, the defense kind of clamped down, made things a lot tougher, and they just weren't able to find the golden adjustment that was going to help them get into the scorer's column. So while the loss is disappointing, a lot to be proud of for that program. Again, like I said, they've made 4 straight state semifinals on both sides of it. No other program in the state can say that, can come anywhere close to saying that. So just congratulations to those 2 teams on a great year.
Yeah, and look at when Louisville made that move to change up some of the defensive moves late in the game. When you used all of this energy in the first 3 quarters, and then they go late into that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough.
And that Courtney Smith for Marcus, man, big in the middle, fast down the pool. I mean, there were several times she got behind the defense in alone on Jasmine Brown, who's a really, really, really good goaltender for the Lady Falcons. Got in alone, and just with her length, her ability to kind of score and shoot from a bunch of different arm slots was really just, as Coach Colzer said, it was a combination for not so great water polo on his end, and unfortunately for the Lady Falcons, it's just the way that it played out. But a couple seniors, on that team, but they are returning a lot of really good players. And as Coach Colzer said, the expectation is always to return to the Alamo City. So they are already now going to be getting, the work in to start moving in that direction.
It's getting to the point in water polo where some teams are catching up.
Yeah.
They're catching up.
Yep.
They really are. I mean, it's because they're going at it better in some ways, better coaching, better athletes who are getting in the water. And with Foster, I mean, but they still continue doing what they're doing. They just train. They just get in the water and play.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to continue for them, I think. And for the boys, you can only hope the best. But, when you made it there 4 times, why not make it a 5th?
Make it a 5th, and certainly, again with the girls, they have great seniors that are graduating. For the guys, Gabe Lucero and Logan Akayan, who is their starting goalkeeper. But their leading scorers are Andrew Colzer and Ethan Molina, who will both be back. There's a lot of other key pieces, Thomas Carnizas and Hudson Cope, and guys that you really would expect to be really key players again next year. A lot of pieces coming back from Hebron, that beat them. Clear Creek just won back-to-back titles, as well. So it's going to be tough, but you got to feel like the pieces are going to be there for at least them to be competitive in Region 3 and challenge for a trip to state.
And also a good thing that we heard about water polo today was?
Well, yeah, the pilot program for some off-season training, right? Or spring training stuff for the water polo. So, you have it's kind of nice for those guys, right? If that, you have your fall season, you go into swimming in the winter, and then you can do some training for the sport in the spring. It's the fastest growing sport, high school, the high school level in the state of Texas. This is only going to help it go even bigger.
A lot better.
Yeah.
A lot better. So that's good. Hey, they made it there, and kudos to them. Let's see them again in there again.
It's always fun to go out and, anytime we can make the trip out to San Antonio to cover them at state or cover anybody at any state tournament, we jump all over that, and we'd love to get to be able to do that. So that is going to do it for us here on the Week 9 Fort Bend Herald Football Scoreboard Show. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Give us your thoughts. Tip a cap to our state qualifiers and cross country, well wishes to our volleyball teams in the playoffs. Give congratulations to the Foster water polo teams. Whatever you feel like saying to us, we'd love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your opinions, love to hear what you are thinking about as we move into Week 10 and deeper into the playoff run. So for Joel Luna, I'm Sam Smith. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to us once more, and we'll be right back at you with the action from Week 10.